friend. I'm so glad you're here to listen to another episode of the Happy Whole You podcast. I do have a guest today. Her name is Linda Ugelow, and she is an author. She's a podcast host as well, and she is a speaking confidence coach. And she helps people to break free from the things that inhibit us so that speaking and expressing ourselves becomes one of the best things that we can get to do, which is really cool. She has been featured in the Huffington Post, Money Magazine, Thrive Global, and the list goes on and on. She is absolutely amazing. She has the book Delight in the Limelight, which we will talk about today, and an upcoming course that she is going to be providing for the world. And yeah, I love this conversation I just had with her. So check it out. Let me know how it lands for you.
All right, Linda Ugelow, thank you for joining me on the Happy Whole You podcast.
I'm excited to be here, Anna Marie.
Well, I'm excited to have you. And I was just sharing your intro with the audience. And one thing I didn't share is how you and I met through a course that we're doing.
That's right.
And it's a course on speaking and working on our keynote. And I just think it's awesome to share that because at any age, at any stage, we should always continue to develop ourselves and where we're at in life.
Absolutely. And also, I want to share that this is not my first speaking program that I've been in. I think I've been in maybe 9 or 10. So this is the first or maybe the second, the business of speaking. And because there is always more to learn. And when we take a program, we're in a particular place in our journey. And then maybe later on, we'll be in a different place and we need some help at that stage.
Yes, yes. Always a curious mindset and a beginner's mindset. Learning always it's such a good place to come from. And what's interesting about you is you actually help people overcome some of the challenges and the fears around speaking. But before we get into that, can you share with everyone just a little bit about yourself and what got you to where you are today?
I'm a speaking confidence and vocal coach, a speaking vocal coach. And I live in Massachusetts, so the eastern part of the US. How I got here? Gosh, that is a really good question. I feel like, how did I end up here? I mean, looking back, we can always connect the dots.
Yeah.
And I see that I always struggled with communication and speaking and expressing myself. Not so much expressing myself through the body because I was a dance specialist. I was a performer on stage for 40 years with a women's world music group where I was principal dancer and I played upright bass and percussion and I sang with a lot of struggle. But the worst part was introducing a song from the stage. Now, doing that, I figured big deal. I'm afraid, but I'll just white knuckle through it because I don't know, maybe we perform twice a month and it was one song that I had to introduce usually. And yeah, I knew I was anxious about it every single time, even though I had it memorized what I was going to say. But it wasn't enough of a motivation for me to do anything about it or to even realize that it was a thing that I needed to get over because a lot of people are afraid to speak, right? But in 2015, I became an online coach. I took a coaching program, and I had to put myself out there. So the first thing I started with was some video programs. I felt super awkward, but, I learned some techniques and skills. And my video mentor said, there's this brand new app that's amazing. It's going to change the online space forever. It's called Periscope. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it was the very first live stream app. Before Facebook started live streaming or any other platform, Periscope was there. And I was going to be an early adopter. And all the marketing gurus said, you got to get on every day to become following. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm scared, but I'm going to do it. And I was really scared. I was quite terrified. My heart was racing. I was hyperventilating. I felt like I disembodied and kind of like was hovering over my own body as I spoke, and wasn't quite sure what I said afterwards. But I have a master's degree in expressive arts therapy. I I looked up on Google, like, how to get over my nerves, and I did everything that I could find, like reframing the fear as excitement, and I did meditation and deep breathing and power poses, affirmations, you name it, I tried it.
Yeah.
And I figured, after a few weeks, I'll be okay. So 10 weeks go by. I'm about to press broadcast, and I notice my heart is racing. And I thought, why am I still afraid? And I felt it wasn't like I didn't feel like I could keep going, but I didn't know how long I wanted to keep going, having to manage my fear. I didn't want to manage my fear. I didn't want to have fear to manage. So I decided I was going to get rid of it. And I made a long list of all the tools that I have. I said, let's see, what do I know about? Made a long list, and I looked at it and I thought, wow, I think I'm going to be able to do this. But before I do it, what is the fear? What is this fear? So I closed my eyes and I asked if the fear could talk, what would it say? What came back was, you're going to be attacked. And all of a sudden, I had a memory of when I was a kid, and mom would put me on a pedestal because I was the good girl in the family. And she'd say, why can't you girls, my older sisters, be more like Linda? They hated that, of course. And as soon as mom turned her back, they would torture tickle me, kick me in the shins, say, shut up, stupid. And it was like, it wasn't an aha, but it was a duh. Of course, I'm
Yeah.
cool being the center of attention because I learned it was dangerous. Not just that, but if I shined too much, my sisters wouldn't love me.
Mm.
And and all of a sudden that changed like the course of my career because I didn't see that out there on Google. I didn't see anyone talking about the root causes and how to address them. I happen to have a few tools in my back pocket of clearing stuff with EFT. You may have heard of EFT freedom technique. Maybe you've used it.
Yeah.
Creative visualization, forgiveness, a lot of forgiveness. I thought of everyone who had ever made a comment to me that kind of eroded my confidence or made me feel belittled or embarrassed or rejected. And I just forgave everyone I could think of. And most of all, I forgave myself. After 5 days, no more racing heart.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I love that story because one of the things I work with clients on is where we essentially dive into the path to extract the value gain. Once we figure out what that background programming is, and the way I view it through the lens of what you shared is you have this background programming that you weren't aware of from those moments with your sister. And then if I were to look at the value gained from you going through that, like you wrote a book, you help people through this. Like what like what a great value gained. And you probably have a lot of like kindness and compassion and understanding for people that do have that racing heart and that do have that fear. Yeah, that's such an amazing story and so beautiful how you were able to like go back in time and extract that and see it from an adult perspective. And I think that can be really helpful.
It's very, very helpful. And I think it's key to healing the past because we bring a much different perspective
Yeah.
at current age than we had resources for in an earlier age. And I've come to believe that a lot of the healing comes down to changing the relationship we have with those messages, with those experiences, that we can bring love and compassion and understanding and forgiveness.
Yeah.
And so they no longer get triggered once we have changed our relationship to them.
Yeah.
Therefore, when we stand in front of people, we're not being pulled out of the present by the past. When we're in the present, we have the capacity to think more clearly, to be grounded in our bodies, to be more connected with how we want to express ourselves and communicate. So
Yeah.
it's a big, big win.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. And ultimately, what we're doing is we're reprogramming the neural pathways towards the positive and towards the healing. So your brain no longer fires the wires like it was previously. Um, yeah, I remember the first time I was going to get up and speak in front of a group of people. This was at a church, and the pastor wanted me to share my story. And I looked at him and I was like, I can't do this. And he like looked at like, why not? I'm like my heart was already beating so fast. Like, no way. And I remember he looked at me, and this really helped me go like get through it. But he told me, he's like, it's not about you. It's about the message being sent through you. And I remind myself of that all the time when I go to speak. I also recognize that some of my past programming in the back, if I'm not smart enough. So to get up and speak in front of people, that judgment of who does she think she is? She's not smart enough, right? I have worked on reprogramming that for me, which has helped. So any of the anxiousness I ever feel when I'm about to speak, I always tell myself, this is excitement. You're not anxious because like whatever you're going to say is coming through you. It's not about you, and it's for the people that you're sharing it with. So, yeah, I love this conversation because it's so often, we're constantly communicating with people. And it's interesting how our level of anxiousness, it can be in front of two people, it can be in front of five people, it can be in front of a church or on a stage. Like we all have our different levels of anxiousness and fear. It could be speaking at a meeting, it could be having a conversation with your boss that you're like fearing to speak your mind. So you said a little bit about like the path, but so do you feel like that's like ultimately where people are challenged when it comes to speaking and using their voice? Is the
Yeah, I
path?
think so. So the past, if we are getting triggered, yes, it's always about the past. What's there can be past experiences, but it could also be messages. You spoke about the message that you had that I'm not good enough, and probably because there were experiences that you had that led you to believe that you're not good at. So so it's those messages that we received, and it doesn't have to be that it was directly said to us. It could be things we read or that we saw in film or, that's part of our culture
Yeah.
that we just absorb, or things like children should be seen and not heard, or don't talk back to your elders, or silence is golden. I mean, if we try to be good as kids and we hear these things, we absorb them. And then at some point, it's like, wait, the rules are changed.
Yeah.
I'm, I'm trying to be a good kid. st- And now you're telling me to speak up, but I'm trying to be quiet. Tell me to be quiet. I mean, you didn't tell me about this updated terms of service here.
Yes. Oh my God.
So that's number 2, the messages that are unconsciously absorbed. And third are the ways that we speak to ourselves. And of course, you know all about this. But if we don't feel safe inside ourselves, if we're saying mean, berating things or waiting to jump on any perceived imperfection, or demanding a particular level of or perfection that we can't tolerate, those things are not going to be generally helpful or supportive for us feeling comfortable. Because if you don't feel safe inside yourself, you're not going to feel safe in front of people.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. So I'm a big believer in, it's like we totally accept that we can get more skillful in our communication with other people and of course with public speaking. there's less spoken or understood, that we can also change our relationship to how we speak to ourselves and become better communicators. I mean, I think there is understanding. Sure, you speak about this a lot, that we can, use kinder words. We can become our own biggest supporters. And I think that that idea that we can be our staunchest allies more than anyone else can be, because we are with ourselves 100% of the time.
Yeah.
No one else, with their best intention, can be there for us. They have a responsibility for their own well-being, for other people in their lives, for their own, dreams and goals and responsibilities. So it's really up to us to do the best we can, and find the most advantageous ways of communicating with ourselves. So that's where I feel like this trigger of the fear comes from, is the past, the messages, and our thinking, inner dialogue.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, I agree. That inner dialogue is, whew, I wrote a whole book on that one. Yeah, once we can start to reprogram the way we think and speak about our life, we're actually able to show up and do some pretty extraordinary things that otherwise we, you know, m- years ago, we probably would have been like, yeah, right, I could never do that, right? It's like I could never step on stage and talk, or I could never, do this speaking engagement. And then once you change that dialogue, yeah, you can step into so much.
Yeah.
So where do you think this the imposter syndrome comes from? So
Well, yeah, I know. Yes, the whole self-doubt piece.
yeah.
Yeah, I actually look at imposter syndrome very similarly to the fear of speaking. I feel that there's always it's not random, that it's always connected to something. So, for instance, I had one client who was a consultant for a big energy company, very highly paid, very highly thought of. And she felt like she was a fraud and always afraid of being found out, even though she had tons of awards and lots of accolades. Everybody around her seemed to really believe in her and respect her and value her, except her parents. So she grew up, she was in an immigrant family. I don't know why they seem to have been wounded people themselves, but they told her that she was a disappointment to them, and how God must have punished them by giving her to them as their child. She was never good enough. Nothing she said for about 20 minutes when she came home with her perfect report card or an award, they would be delighted and proud of her. And 20 minutes later, it would be back to berating her. And this was a wound that she carried. She would never be good enough, no matter how much she does. And I think a lot of people do have, let's say, a parent or somebody who is an authority or a caregiver to whom they could never please.
Yeah.
And this is a core wound that they carry. Another place where it shows up is around special programs, like gifted programs, different gifted children programs, or affirmative action. I've spoken to, I had someone on my podcast, Trisha Montalvo Tim, who was a very highly successful attorney in some very big companies. She was Latina, and she shared that affirmative action made her feel that she really didn't belong where she was, because she had this special leg up. And I think it can happen. I also had another client who was in a gifted uh, school program, but she didn't make it in. Her father got her in, and someone said, "You don't really belong here. Your dad just got you in here." And a comment like that just it lasted decades.
Yeah.
Her. So these kinds of things can also appear. If we, that term imposter syndrome is often conflated with being a beginner at something or going into something new. That feels different to me. That's just kind of like where we need beginner mindset and being able to accept and honor where we are in our journey and that we're not going to be as good as we will be later on. And we just got to learn to accept that and like loosen up about it and feel like it's not a big deal to be new at something and not know exactly what you're doing. That's fine. I mean, in fact, it actually is more comfortable to be a beginner when you're new because it's easier to say, "Hey, I'm new at this." They, if you've been doing it for a while, then it's harder to kind of like say, yeah. In fact, like when I work with people high up in a company or like execs, they say, I can't, nobody knows I'm afraid of speaking. And I don't want anyone to know because they think that I'm it's not an issue for me. So that's much harder for somebody to, later on in their competency and expertise to be vulnerable and open that this is something that they struggle with.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I love that perspective. Another thing that I was thinking when imposter syndrome, do you find that it can kind of come up when like what you do is easy to you, quote unquote easy. Like what I do is really easy to me. This is my passion. This is what I desire. It's like getting on this podcast, there's no angst about it. Working with clients that I saw this morning, no angst about it. Like it's just like I'm in flow. Um, but it's really easy for me. So sometimes I find that when I get imposter syndrome and I'm going out and sharing the things that I'm doing or charging for like corporate stuff. And sometimes I'm like, who am I to charge that much? Or like that imposter syndrome comes up because I think sometimes it's because it's almost so easy to me that I feel like, you know, I don't know, am I being a fraud because of what I'm charging? And my coach says you need to triple your prices, Anna Marie. Like you need to triple them. Like you're so affordable, right? But I feel like that imposter syndrome shows up for me, so I'm not increasing my prices to really fit where, say maybe I should be. So what, if you get what I'm saying, like,
I do. And what I recommend, I mean, you kind of mentioned, you said before that you had some experiences where you were told you were not good enough. So it may be, even though you have reprogrammed yourself, it may be time just to kind of like sweep through again and see if there's any still lingering.
oh, there's stuff lingering, I'm sure. Oh, it's
Yeah, it's kind of like just say, okay, I've got this. Maybe there's stuff there. Let's give it a little bit of attention
yeah.
and clear that away. And I also love journaling because it allows us to, for me at least, it's a way for me to get like uncover what's in my unconscious, what's on my mind. So I could say, okay, so why do I feel this way? What am I afraid of? What is it bringing up? And then when it's out on paper, I can decide what I want to do with it. I might want to do some EFT. I may want to do some forgiveness or clearing of, with some modality. I may want to reframe it with affirmations or just gratitudes or reframes so there's so many different tools out there that I'm sure you have a huge toolbox.
Yeah.
And it just, yeah, open up this little piece of reluctance in you
Mm.
and use it. I love what you said, like at the beginning, these are treasure chests, or I don't, what was your term? It was
Oh,
like,
the values,
oh,
the
yes. Yeah. So say, okay, there's a little value in here for me to discover, because once I pull it out and I'm really owning what I can do. I mean, why not charge more?
yeah.
Why
Right.
why
Cool.
not? It's asking the question, you may come up with, well, because of this and this and that, because I really want to make this affordable, or I really want to. So allow the resistance to be there. And so you bring all this stuff up, the good stuff, the icky stuff that allows you to see what's going on.
Mhm. It's like that, almost like the pros and cons list.
Yeah.
Yeah, like kind of do the compare and contrast of it.
Yeah. But we don't need to make a decision necessarily. We can just like pull it all out and take a look at what's think of it as a psychic closet. It's
Oh, I love that.
it's not my own term. Is it? No, I think that Carl Jung might have. No, maybe it is my term.
Oh, it's great.
It talks about the psyche, being the receptacle of all of our, thoughts and experiences. And I in my book, I talk about the psychic closet and going in and just seeing what's there. What's there. And because once we pull it out, we can examine it and decide what to do with it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's wonderful. And I do think bringing awareness to things deep within us that we've kind of just not taken the time to pull up is really valuable. And then not giving it any meaning, right? Like the way we wound up being isn't right or wrong, it's just how we are. And so one of the things I do for myself and with clients is like we just look at what is, right? Like, okay, so this is here and this is here. What if we didn't give it any meaning? What if it didn't mean anything? And then it's like that shame, that guilt, that anger, like frustration. It's like reprogramming. It's just kind of like, oh, yeah, it feels better to not give it a meaning. But I think, and then you look at like the meaning we give when it comes to public speaking, right? You were given it meaning from when you were a little girl. It's interesting how we give everything meanings, and if we take the meaning out of it, it's like what's there, and what's there is just being. It's
Yes,
beautiful.
yes, yes. And non-judgment is a continuous practice or
Yeah.
unconditional friendliness to the self, as Maslow would say. Another way like to play with it is giving it different kinds of meanings. So, like when we're young, we give it a particular meaning, but there can be lots of interpretations. So, if we have the opportunity to think, oh, well, what other kind of meaning could we give it? We kind of broaden the what would it be? Kind of like the broaden out what it represents, broaden the picture. It's like instead of a very narrow or specific image of this experience, all of a sudden it has a bigger canvas. That's what I was.
Yeah. Yeah, I love
And
that.
a Jungian psychologist that I worked with years ago used to have this approach where we did a lot of dream therapy and play therapy. And when I would bring a dream in, I would give my interpretation. She said, or it could mean this, or it could mean that. And I'd say, well, which one? She says, we don't have to decide. We just brought in the canvas. And all of a sudden, the specific one we had originally chosen kind of melts into this bigger understanding.
What a great practice.
Yeah. For instance, I'll just give a very quick memory of I used to have nightmares where someone was trying to like get in through the windows and I'd like be running around the house and locking the windows. And I remember her saying, oh yeah, this is very good. This is very good. I said, what are you talking about? I was terrified and I'm rushing around the house and said, one interpretation is that there is something from your unconscious that's trying to make it into your consciousness.
Mm.
And I never had that nightmare again. It was like every time, I think once or twice in my life, I did have a little bit of a scary dream. But every time I go, oh, this is good. It's my unconscious trying to come into my consciousness. What could that be? What could be wanting to come into my consciousness? And even just asking that question shifted me into a whole new relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels better when you can ask yourself those open-ended questions. I struggled with nightmares when I was young as well. And then every once in a while, I'll have some weird things come up that it's like, okay, what are you trying to teach me? What's trying to come through? Or, what am I working through? I always look at it now as something that I'm working through, that I'm not conscious of working through it. It's just this, you're subconscious because it is a dream. Um, but I did used to wonder, like, why would I mean, like, nightmares where I would, like, go down to my parents' room, but they wouldn't let me in the room. We lived in this farmhouse, and it was always so hot, so I think when we're hot, we can have more nightmares. But I would go down, I lived in Michigan, and it was so hot and humid at night, and I remember I would lay by their door, and there'd be a little crack in the door. In their room, they had an air conditioner in the room, which was so fancy. And I would just lay there and try to get that cool air. But just going down there, I wouldn't have nightmares anytime I laid next to their bed, or their door. But I struggled with them for a while. But it's just interesting. I feel like sometimes we bring things over. I believe in past lives, so I feel like we're bringing things over from lifetimes before, and the lessons and what we're trying to work through in this lifetime. So
Yeah, I love that too because it broadens the canvas or brings another dimension to the canvas.
yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that visual. It's a canvas. That's great. That's helpful. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about this conversation about getting over the fear. There's more to speaking than just getting over the fear. I mean, obviously there are all these skills, but there's also more in the experience. So I feel like speaking is our human design and that we are meant to really enjoy getting to speak. First of all, it's amazing that we can even do it. I mean, if you stop to think, we're moving our jaw, our tongue, our lips, it make all these sounds, and there are all these different languages all over the world that have been developed. Isn't that astounding? I mean, it's so mystical and magical. So I feel like there's this whole dimension of or different dimensions of appreciation and mystery that we can align ourselves in to, again, broaden the canvas of what speaking is about. And also on the physical level, when you talk about the neural pathways, the the third part of my inner freedom framework. So the first part is about clearing away the past experiences and messages. The second part is about restoring a sense of safety inside our own head. And the third part is kind of repatterning our habits. So when you've been afraid to speak, you can be hunched over in your body or you feel tight in your body. It might affect your voice. You may speak too fast or you might speak really softly, or because you want to get it over with or you're not sure about hearing you. So we have all these neuro what do you call it? Is a neuro pathway patterns that that come out of how we feel about our speaking. But once we've cleared all that other stuff away, then we can design what we want to feel and how we want to enjoy the speaking that we do. And a big part of it is our voice because we are speaking with our voice. Our voice is our instrument. And there's so many things that we can enjoy about our voice. If you look at any 3-year-old, you know what I'm talking about. Play with sounds all the time, and they're having so much fun. And it's a vibration in our body, and we're kind of every sentence we say is on an exhale, and there's so many different ways to say things. Our voice can be our way to connect with our physical, somatic, visceral experience of speaking. And when we are able to use that sensation of speaking as we speak, then it's like it's playful because think of it like every time you speak, you can be like a tour guide or you are letting people know how you feel about something, what's important by what you emphasize. You color it up, you draw in and out of the lines in your storytelling by the way you use your voice, by the tone of your voice, by the volume, by the energy that you bring. So we can talk like this and be a bit like bored and I don't know. Or we can be like really motivational or we could just be just kind of flippant. Uh, like everything there's so much nuance that we can bring to speaking. And when we look at like, how do I express myself? How do I want to express myself? Then all of a sudden we can set intentions for every time we speak, or just be aware of, I want to see how freely self-expressive I can be.
Mm.
I want to see how freely I can use like my arms or my hands when I speak. I want to see how I can use more melody in my voice. I want to see if I can like get quiet sometimes and get into more volume at other times so there's more contrast. All of a sudden it's like, whoa, it's a playground out there as a speaker. And when I say as a speaker, I'm talking about anyone who opens up their mouth and communicates to another person. You don't have to wait till you get on stage. You don't have to wait for the meeting. You've got people to talk to from morning to night, your colleagues, your family, your friends. Every time you open your mouth is an opportunity to enjoy and expand your speaking experience.
I love that. And it was so beautiful how you just like described the gift of our voice. I think that, we can take it for granted. Like
Totally.
it's such a beautiful instrument. And yeah, you're right. All the different languages and just the things that we can say, the volume, the tone, the energy coming out. It's a beautiful, beautiful instrument.
And we really forget that that we are actually playing an instrument. And a lot of times just kind of like playing with 3 notes when we have a couple of octaves. And I'm saying that metaphorically. It's like we don't have to use every, tone that we pop.
Yeah, but I get that. Even like with my kids, like if I get excited about something or I'm trying to like inspire them to say do the dishes or something, I do play with my voice and use different tones and just like different energy. So the outcome can be like exciting, right? Not that I'm just telling them to do something. And so, yeah, that's interesting. I just never really like thought about exactly it through as an instrument. So I love that. Thank you. Yeah.
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 And that way you can be even more playful with your kids.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so cool. I love
Like,
this.
time to get on our sneakers.
Yeah. Oh, and I do. I bust into song a lot. Like they will tell you, they're like, "Mom, you are so crazy," and they're just like, yeah, they think I'm like a little bit kooky and I'm a little bit out there, but
I'm sure they love it.
you know, oh yeah, deep down, I know they do. I actually spent a week at this camp with my daughter for her school. They go to this place called Camp Keep. And, so I was, the parent there and had to work with the kids. And so, I mean, I was treating them like they were my own kids and I'd bust out in song and, do different things. And, yeah, and I could tell my daughter just instead of being embarrassed of me, she just embraced it and loved it. She's in sixth grade. So, you know, but she told me that she said, "Yeah, all my friends thought you were like the most fun mom. Like you're the funnest mom." And I just thought that was pretty funny because,
That's the best.
you know,
That's a base. Great.
it really was. It really was. Well, can you share with everyone about your book and just a little bit more about how you work with people?
My book is Delight in the Limelight, which is also the name of my podcast. And it's called Delight in the Limelight because as I said before, I don't want people just to survive the speaking that they do. I want them to thrive. I want it to be something that is one of the best things that you get to do because this is this is what we do in our life. We communicate, and let's make it something that feels really good and satisfying, and we feel we can get to a place of feeling like we're good at it, because we enjoy it and people give us space to do it and they listen to us and we make an impact and we make a contribution. So this is a guide to go from the dread of speaking to loving it instead.
Mm.
And what did you ask me about? About my book and
How do you work with people?
how I work with people?
You and
Yeah, so there are two ways that I work with people. One is private coaching, and the other way is through a new program that I am launching in January called the Delight in the Limelight Accelerator, where we have different live cohort experiences to, number one, clear the fear, uncover and address these impacting past experiences and messages, where we learn to get comfy on camera, because being on camera really is a wonderful exploration canvas for us to explore presence and dynamics and expression and storytelling. It's it's a really fun way to learn to be non-judgmental and to look for the positive in other people, but most of all yourself. So, and then we work on loving and transforming the sound of our voice so that it can be the instrument that you love to open up your mouth and you love the sound of your voice and you love the feeling of your voice. And it makes speaking one of the best things you get to do.
And what type of person would like this course be like the most beneficial for? So someone's like, well, I don't know, because I don't do public speaking, but what are the people that you suggest? Like, you're struggling with this or that, this is for you.
Yes, if you are struggling with, perhaps you are already being asked to speak in public, or maybe you've been avoiding certain positions or jobs because it requires you to speak in public or give presentations or showing up for team meetings.
Yeah.
Or if you feel like you want to become an influencer and make an impact and open up the possibilities for your own career, public speaking, whether, I'm not saying you have to be on a stage, but being willing to take opportunities when they arise and say, yes, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
That you may be willing to represent your company or your business, or perhaps you're in business for yourself and you want to get on social media. People aren't going to know about you, or they will be more likely to follow you, hire you, buy from you if they can see your face and feel your energy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I feel like we owe it not just to ourselves, but to others to get out there, because we are here to contribute, to participate, and we do that largely, not entirely, but largely through our voice. So if that's something that you feel like is going to advance your career, if it's going to make you feel more comfortable in your career, that's what this is for. That's what this is for.
Yeah, what a needed course. That's amazing. Honestly, like I look back at that situation when I was at that church, and I feel like had I never had that experience, I don't think I would be as far along with my speaking as I am today. And so, yeah, it's beautiful to have those milestones and then, have opportunities like your course to refine and to discover things about ourselves that, we all have these blinders up. We don't always realize the things that, how we're getting in our own way. This is why courses and coaches and things like that are so helpful for us to keep evolving and stepping into who we're supposed to be, because that background programming definitely is programming us to be off course from who we're supposed to be. And I think it's up to us in this lifetime to discover what those programs are and move them out of the way so we can step into who we are. So I love that you're providing that for the world. Well, thank you for that, Linda. Now, where can people find you on social? Where can they grab your book and where can they sign up for your course?
Well, if you go to my website, lindaugelow.com, that's Ugelow, you can download a free copy of my book. Of course, you can get it online. You can even order it through your library if you want to do it that way, or your local bookstore. Online social media, I show up mostly on TikTok, LinkedIn, and Facebook. But I have a presence everywhere. Linda Ugelow is my handle everywhere. So wherever you hang out, you can check me out.
Easy and streamlined. And then you have a podcast as well.
Yes. That's called Light in the Limelight also. And if, one of the thing that, if you go to my website, you can download a speaker preparation checklist because it's not, we don't just prepare if we want to feel the best, we can. There are many ways to prepare for the speaking that we do by opening up our physical bodies and by warming up your voice, because again, it's our instrument.
Yeah.
As well as bringing ourselves into a place of focus and clarity. So there are some ways that we can do that as well. So in the checklist, I describe these different ways, and you can just go, okay, I've got a meeting today. Let me prepare myself. Check, 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 check. Okay, I'm good to go.
Awesome. Well, Linda, thank you for that. Thank you for your resources and thank you for what you're doing for the world.
Thank you, Anna Marie.